We're gonna have to clean up our image, you know, to the world so that people don't fear, well, what if I come here and they don't let me go and then they send me to Alligator Alcatraz?
ICE agents started rounding up people, putting them in buses to take away.
You have people being snatched up, being chased through Home Depot. You have car washes raided.
This week, our exclusive interview with LA Mayor Karen Bass about immigration, homelessness, and the criticisms of her handling of the LA wildfires. Give me your two biggest regrets for the fires.
I probably have like 10.
Now, last week, we discussed the devastation and response failures during these fires with Mayor Bass's chief political opponent, developer Rick Caruso.
Karen Bass, God bless her, has never run anything. And we knew in taking this job, it was going to result in failure.
But before we get to Mayor Bass's response to these criticisms, we wanted to learn more about actually what happened on the ground by talking to one of the people who was helping fight these fires, Community Brigade co-founder Keegan Gibbs. Every day I drive along the PCH. If you turn left, it's gone. You see house gone, house gone, house gone, house gone, house gone, house gone, house gone.
Yeah.
You know, you have that footage of flying into LA, and it's just on fire. This seemed to be what happened. And we weren't prepared, and everyone's pointing fingers, and everyone started fighting. One of the things we like to do is just, people know more than us, so that they ask them questions. Shane Smith asked questions. You know, I was angry because my house nearly burned down. Now my neighbors' houses burned down, and we can't drive down the highway anymore because all my friends' houses burned down.
Yeah.
So I wanted to talk to someone who knew something about it, and guess what? You are the guy.
Yeah.
So here we are.
Yeah.
Keegan Gibbs. You were telling me that you were here the night my house nearly burned down.
Coincidentally, not because I knew you. It was just,
Yeah.
I happened to be here. It wasn't like, I had no idea this was your house at the time. So
Yeah. Coincidentally, again, I was looking at footage that I did not know was yours of all of the lower third of Malibu on fire. You were driving and you say something like, let's just get to Duke's.
So make it to Duke.
I mean, everything's on fire and the telephone poles are falling down. And
yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah, 1 sec.
The great footage, but a terrible thing to have footage of. Keegan and I have worked together at Vice before, traveled around the world, done a lot of things. You're a filmmaker, you're a surfer, but this was before your new turn.
Yes.
Which is the Community Brigade, co-founder.
People who live in Malibu are getting help from neighbors. They are residents who belong to community brigades, which help coordinate with first responders.
The goal of the brigade is to create a fire-adapted and a fire-prepared community.
The reason why I want to do this podcast is because, well, the lower third of Malibu is gone. You know, a lot of the Palisades is gone, and everyone's forgotten. I travel around the world, and they're like, you know, how are the riots in LA? I'm like, the riots?
Next news cycle, yeah.
LA burned down.
Yeah.
What happened?
You know, we were there really early, and so I saw what happened. Once it enters into the urban environment and more than 10 houses get going, there's really nothing you can do. All the firefighters in Central California and South, we'll call it 1,000 firefighters. Even with that water, those houses are burning down. Because of the density, because of receptive fuel beds and the structures and stuff, there's not really a whole lot you can do. And that's where I think that a lot of the anger and distrust of the fire service, of local politics and government comes from, because they said, what were you doing? Were you just sitting on your hands? And I was out there, I saw plenty of people doing really crazy, heroic stuff, trying to do their best. And then the Eaton fire starts.
We now move to a different part of Southern California, which is also on fire. This is the Eaton fire in the Altadena area.
So then you have two of the biggest urban fires in history of LA happening at the same time, with other potential fires going anywhere else in the state. So that even with all the water and all the firefighters, we were still losing houses. Right. There was a lot of houses that we were at that we did our best, and I know the real guys and gals were really doing their best. There's not really a whole lot you can do under those conditions. It was very extreme, and they knew it's coming, right? Like 3, 4, 5 days out, we started getting alerts for this wind event, and I was like, ooh, that looks pretty bad. And as leading up to that day, it just kept getting worse and worse and worse. And they called out very specifically 2 days ahead of time, 210 corridor, Pacific Palisades, Topanga, as as spots to worry about.
Right.
This was Palisades' first big fire. The fire department and a lot of people, fire behavior analysts and stuff like that, they knew it was going to come eventually, whether it was this year and 20 years and 50 years, they knew it was going to happen.
Question: how big is the Malibu Fire Department? Because that seems to be a recurring theme of, hey, when the fires happen, where were all the fire trucks?
So Malibu's serviced by LA County Fire.
Well,
And LA County Fire is one of the biggest and most well-prepared wildland agencies in the world. Like the rest of the world pretty much looks to what LA County does. Yeah.
so why weren't there any in Malibu?
There's just, I mean, so Woolsey, for example, right? 250,000 people were evacuated.
Right.
250,000. It was one of the largest evacuations in history.
Wow.
1,600 structures burned down. There were 2,000 911 calls in the first 36 hours, and there was 200 fire engines. So you have 200 fire engines that are responding to 250,000 people evacuating with 2,000 911 calls of people that are calling, hey, I'm trapped at my house.
Just heartbreaking visuals that have developed since the Pacific Palisades fire broke out.
How is that scalable? And even with the Community Brigade, like, even if we had 500 people, ultimately it's not gonna change the outcome of a fire. It's like what happened on PCH, and there was a lot of firefighters down on PCH. We drove there a lot during the fire, especially that first night. That was just dominoes. When the houses are right next to each other, there's no, you can have all the ocean water. You're not gonna be able to prevent the next house from burning, the next house from burning.
Well, that's the other question I get.
Yeah.
Is Malibu's on the ocean,
Right, yeah, why don't they use the ocean water? Yeah.
right? Why don't they use the ocean water?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of debate around or talk about water and water availability.
No.
All the houses on PCH, there was water on PCH the whole time. They never ran out of water or never ran out of even pressure of water down PCH. And there was a lot of firefighters down there, but it didn't matter. You need, 5 to 10 trucks per house to save it from going to the next house. But when the houses are this far away from each other, there's nothing you can do, so.
Well, there was a lot of finger pointing, and speaking of Kara Bass, and I'm interviewing her for this, but pointing at her, and then her pointing at the fire service, and then the Palisades Reservoir, the decommissioning of fire trucks and fire service men and women, shipping off equipment to Ukraine. It's a Hollywood story.
It's a big can of worms to open.
Yeah.
We have a tendency to build up against the wildland, right? Call it the wildland, the brush. That vegetation burns, and typically when it burns on its terms, it gets pretty nasty. That vegetation that led up to the Palisades and to Topanga, et cetera, that hadn't burned in like 50 years. That's a lot of vegetation. Whether you're gonna burn it, you're gonna massacre it, you're going to send goats through it, it needs to be treated at some point. If structures were hardened, especially at that first interface of where the fire met the community, the fire would have stopped. The community itself would have been the fire break. And so we always talk about these fires as, oh, this was a wildfire and this was a lack of, bad management or bad politics or whatever. It's a product of the environment. It's a product of how we're building in the environment and how we live in the environment, including the structures that we're living in.
I guess that's the big thing is most people, when they talk about a fire, are like, okay, there's a house, let's say in downtown Philadelphia or New York City or whatever, and, they have a 5-alarm fire or whatever, and everybody goes out, 5 alarms go off, and it's just, lots of firemen putting out one fire. Yeah. Whereas here, it just is huge sections of the city are on fire.
Yeah.
And quite densely, populated.
Yeah.
So that becomes a problem. Now, you brought up a point, which is, look, we know there's going to be fires. We can mediate that. We can decrease vegetation. We can harden the house. We can do all these things. I think, okay, the whole thing about, look, Malibu's going to burn, or, we knew it was coming in Palisades. I think when you go to the failed city thing, the reason why that comes up is, okay, we pay the politicians, we vote you in, we do all this stuff. People are like, hold on a second, we pay you guys and elect you guys, and you guys are supposed to figure out, okay, great, like in Israel, they do an Iron Dome. Like they know that they're going to be bombed and they get Patriot missiles, whatever. Where are Patriot missiles?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And rather than say, well, Shane, you can get your own Patriot missiles. You should just get your own Patriot missiles and shoot down your own things. People are like, hold on a second.
No, I get it. I totally get it. This was the first time I've seen a fire chief of a major fire department stand up during a public meeting. I think it was for the Palisades fire.
Yeah.
4 or 5 days into the fire, and stood up. Somebody said, "Hey, how do we prevent this from happening again?" Fire chief could have said, we'll increase your taxes, we'll get a new helicopter, we'll get some more retardant, we'll get some more fire trucks, we'll prevent it from happening again, because that's what's happened for 30, 40 years, right? Instead, he got up there and said, you know what? We can't.
Hi, it's Shane Smith. Now, before we get back to it, I wanted to let you know about my new Substack. I'm shanesmith.substack.com. Now, I'm going to be posting a lot of new content there, from extended versions of this show to behind-the-scenes stories from my adventures all over the world with Vice. Now, the best part, it's free if you sign up now. So go to shanesmith.substack.com and enter your email. That's it, shanesmith.substack.com. Or click the link below, and now on with the show, which rhymes with Bazango. The larger issue about how it's like a fait accompli, or it's a given that San Francisco is this sort of failed city, right? Because they can't protect themselves. This is what liberal policies lead to, et cetera, et cetera. And it's just used as an exemplification of how failed cities will just burn.
Yeah.
So you've sort of gotten caught up in this political rhetoric.
Yeah.
Now you're on the front lines, putting your own life at risk with your buddies, putting their lives at risk. Are you cognizant of the sort of, what's happening in the news or on social media as this is going? Because it went on for quite some time.
Yeah, I mean, after the fire, for sure.
Yeah.
And
what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, Malibu's been burning down for 100 years.
Right.
Before there was politics, before
Right.
there was, modern firefighting, even at the same rate. It's not like Malibu started burning down at this rate just because of modern politics.
Right.
Right. And what's crazy is that we do have the best fire service in the world, and it's only gotten better, but it just can't meet the demand of what the conditions are.
Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass is facing mounting criticism over her response to the deadly wildfires gripping Southern California. More than 140,000 people have signed a change.org petition demanding that Bass resign.
When the fires are out, we will do a deep dive.
Now, facing increasing scrutiny over issues like the fires, homelessness, and now immigration, we spoke to LA Mayor Karen Bass about how she plans to solve many of these problems. All right, Mayor Karen Bass, thank you for taking the time today. I'm going to get your bona fides out of the way. You were born here in LA.
Born and raised, Angelino.
There you go. 43rd mayor of Los Angeles since 2022. First woman to serve as mayor. Previously, U.S. House of Representatives from 2011 to 2022. And before that, California State Assembly from 2004 to 2010. 2008, you were elected to serve as the 67th Speaker of the California State Assembly, the first African-American woman in the United States history to serve as the Speaker of the state legislative body.
That's it.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on.
Thank you for being here. Now, what are you doing today? Let's get into the easy stuff.
What I'm doing today, well, first of all, it's great to start my morning out here with you.
Well, thank you very much.
I appreciate that.
Thank you.
And then from here, I'm going to do a send-off to this unbelievable guy who was the head of the Army Corps of Engineers, who led the effort to get everything straight with the recovery part, phase 1 and phase 2 in the Palisades. Well, actually, the whole area, Malibu, Altadena as well.
Right.
And I want to go, even though it's going to be very tough for me to get there, but I have to go and tell him goodbye because he's such an outstanding man.
And aren't you you're announcing?
Yes, going to see the governor after that for the film tax credit, something I've worked on for years and years and years.
LA, based on media, we need tax credits.
Hey, you know what? This is our foundational industry. And I was very proud when I served as speaker. We got the first tax credit done.
There we go.
Sometimes what happens in those smoke-filled rooms late at night are good things.
There you go.
Of course, nobody's smoking, but we were able to slip the tax credit in to a budget bill in 2009.
Well, great. And thank you for taking time out of your busy day. Those are both two big things. We have some milestones. You hear a lot of bad things out of LA, and I want to get into that about how politicized LA's become just as a city.
Yes.
On the national scale. Water and power has been restored in only 2 months. as opposed to in the campfire, it took like 18 months for water to come back. So that's good. Phase 1 of hazardous waste and debris removal finished in 28 days, again in half the time of the campfire. Phase 2, the cleaning lots for rebuilding. You know, we walked around the Palisades to do a walk and talk, and you know, I was pleasantly surprised with how good it looked, because it looked like Hiroshima after the fire.
Absolutely.
It was a tragedy.
Absolutely.
And, you know, it's looking like stuff's being done. I was saying I went through the 5 stages, you know, of
grief.
yeah,
Absolutely.
grief.
Yeah.
And in the beginning, angry, and then, you know, afterward, and then you're sort of like, oh, well, you know, this could and we will come back.
Mm-hmm.
Couple of things. Why is there still no action report 6 months after the fires?
An action, oh, you mean an after-action report?
After-action report, yeah.
You know, that's a good question. Where we're waiting for one is the fire. The Fire Commission does one.
Yeah.
And they should be, I'll look and see, but they should be about finished now. So there's 2 reports.
Yeah.
One, the after-action that the Fire Commission does.
Yeah.
And then there's the longer one that could take up to a year that the governor is doing.
Right.
So we should be about ready for the one out of the Fire Commission.
Without taking any of the secrets away, what can we expect? Do you have any idea what we can expect?
Well, this is what I believe, because it's been reported in the news and just from other documentation. You know, there were some major problems not deploying letting the shift go home, which was 1,000 firefighters that could have been available that weren't, not pre-deploying in the Palisades, considering there had been a fire that had happened, you know.
And why didn't they pre-deploy?
I don't know why they didn't. I mean, I just have to tell you, it is a mystery to me today, the actions of the fire chief. I can't explain it. I had a great relationship with her. I'm not sure what happened. One day, I imagine I will find out.
And so you're kind of in a tough position because you're the mayor, but a lot of this is, you know, it's like an army, and you have, you know, generals and people go out there, and the fire chief obviously is in charge of the fires.
Right.
So there was a lot of questions, you know, why weren't the fire
hydrants?
Why didn't the fire hydrants work?
Right.
Why was the reservoir offline? And why didn't they deploy even though they knew it was going to be 100-mile-an-hour wind?
Right. And also there's that, but then there's also why were the lies told? Like about the budgets and the broken fire engines.
Well, let's get into that.
And so, you know, again, it's a mystery, but just in terms of the facts, yes, there were broken fire engines. We find out later that those fire engines they're broken because they're used for spare parts. But there were 40 fire engines that were idle because they didn't have the staff that she sent home. And the budget cut.
And there's no reason, we don't have a reason for that?
I don't know the reasons for it. And then the budget cut that never happened. You know, when I...
Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Because, no, but just because I want to explain it, because you're in the weeds on these things.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
There was a reported upon budget cut that the fire department took a massive budget cut pre-fires.
Right.
And that didn't happen.
No, I mean, and irony was, I met with her that morning and told her, I said, there's a discrepancy. This didn't happen.
Right.
Why don't you come to my office? I go to my office, I turn on the TV, and she's on TV, you know, talking about the cut.
Did the city of Los Angeles fail you and your department and our city?
It's my job to stand up as a chief and exactly say justifiably what the fire department needs to operate to meet the demands of the community.
Did they fail you?
That is our job, and I tell you, that's why I'm here. So let's get us what we need so our firefighters can do their jobs.
Did they fail you?
Yes.
What we did when we did the budget was we put money aside for fire because we were in labor negotiations. And the budget was signed before then, but when the labor negotiations were done, we put it back in the budget, which is a common thing. We're doing that right now.
Yeah.
So we reported a lot of layoffs, right?
Yeah.
But we're in labor negotiations.
Right.
And so we believe that we will have few layoffs, but right now you have to report that until it's finished.
And what do you think, speaking of this, she goes on and does a press conference before your meeting. What do you think some of the biggest misconceptions, if you will, or you know, what did the press get right? What did they get wrong about all of that?
Well, you know, I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head a few minutes ago when you said that it was such a tragedy, mass trauma.
Yeah.
And people go through those 5 stages all at once.
Yeah.
And I understand that. I understand grief. Unfortunately, I understand it very personally. But anger is a significant part of that. And so even though it was tough for me personally, in a way I didn't take it personal because I understood that people had to have, a focus.
Their
and
anger,
then
yeah.
while I was, coming home, there was, 12 full hours on the airways to paint a narrative. And so
Mayor Karen Bass is in some political hot water over that trip she made to Africa, to Ghana, in the days before the fire broke out, even though warnings had been in effect before she took off for her trip, this diplomatic mission to Ghana.
So why don't you give us your side of the story? So why in Ghana, if we know that the winds are coming and this is it, and everyone should be on high alert? The fire department let their firefighters go and didn't stand them, in the Palisades. And you're in Ghana, and I guess a lot of people are going, "What's going on?"
I know. And truth be told, and I've said this before, I will just answer your questions. I'm really not trying to give excuses.
Sure, yeah.
But there was no way in the world I knew that the city was in danger when I left. Absolutely no way. And if you think about it, though, if you take a step back, and because I did ask the chief when I came back, why didn't you tell me? And basically the response was because we have Santa Anas all the time, and nobody expected hurricane-force winds. But it was interesting because it had been very publicly announced that I was going.
Right.
The White House had issued a press release saying that I was going to be a part of the presidential delegation.
So that's interesting. It was a presidential delegation.
Yeah, it was widely covered. It wasn't a vacation. And it was covered very positively.
Up until then, yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
right. So no, it wasn't a secret. Now, the administration knew. When I was served in Congress, I was the lead person for African policy for the House. I was the chair of the committee, and I had focused on trade and business-related ties to the African continent. And they certainly knew that I'd love an opportunity like this. And this was something that I did in Congress, and it was a 3-day trip over a weekend. But again, I was asked, do I regret going? Hell yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, let me just do a comparison. If you are out of town and your kid or a member of your family gets sick or hurt, it doesn't matter where you were or why you were there. You feel horrible.
But what did you think when you're on the plane coming back? I mean,
well, first of all, when I got wind that there was a problem, I was ready to leave.
Well, so maybe explain in your words, why was there the delay?
So what happened is that I find out that the city is in trouble, that the fires are happening.
Yeah.
It was about 6 p.m. Ghana time, which was about 10 in the morning LA time. So that's the other thing, by the way, was the time difference that people didn't appreciate. So it's why did it take you so long to get back?
Yeah.
I was close to boarding the plane.
Yeah.
But it was the time difference. So one of the things that's done on a formal delegation is that you have a reception at the ambassador's home on your way to the airport. So that's why I was at a reception. And so on my way to the airport, but we didn't fly commercial, we flew military. And so I boarded the first plane I could board. The fortunate thing was, because it was a military plane, the administration set it up so I had full phone access. So I'm on the phone the entire time. We were even doing staff meetings. I had a meeting with the general manager. I struggled somewhat because at different points in time, the connection wasn't great. So I was on the phone for pretty much all of the 12 hours coming home.
So take me back. So what are some of those reports that are coming in?
Well, they're telling me what's happening in the fire.
Right.
We were preparing the emergency declaration. They were talking to the mayor, the council president who serves as acting mayor while I'm gone. I don't remember if I talked to him or not then, but because there were just a lot of phone calls, sometimes a lot of people on. I think I even did a news interview. But all of that was while I was on the way home.
What happens when you land?
Well, when I land, I land in D.C. first.
Okay.
And I think that's when that news reporter that I didn't know was a news reporter got on the plane.
Madam Mayor, David Blevins from Sky News in the UK.
I'm not going to do that.
Fire chiefs say that they're really stretched to the limit and running out of water. What have you got to say to that?
By this time, I'm, been up for hours and hours and hours. But so when I landed back in LA, it was the ambush of me, looking startled.
Madam Mayor, have you absolutely nothing to say to the citizens today who are dealing with this disaster? No apology for them?
By then I had been flying for 17 hours. And so when I landed in LA, I don't go through the airport, I depart on the tarmac. And the first time in years, the door was stuck.
Have you no response to that? Do you owe citizens an apology for being absent while their homes were burning?
And so the guy just pounced on me, and I didn't know
And he was
who
in the
or what
plane.
it was. I guess, yeah, which I didn't know. He, why were you here? And don't you need to apologize? And don't you feel? And I'm like, what's going on here? So that was that, horrible shot of me looking, shocked.
The minute you land, you're in it.
Oh yeah, even before I get off the plane.
Right.
And I'm sitting there at a door that's stuck.
Right.
Anyway, the president was here by that point, and the governor, and I went to where they were. I missed the president by that time, but met up with the governor. So that was about maybe 11:30 or so in the morning on Wednesday.
And so the president and the governor here, this issue, the LA fires, which I think caused anger as well, I think became seen as a political issue.
Yeah. Well, while I was flying, it was a political issue.
Yeah. Well, maybe talk a little bit about that.
Well, I mean, my, previous opponent was on the air the whole time.
Whether I would have been elected or anybody else would have been elected, if you're the mayor, you're in charge. You're the head of this city. And I would have been prepared. Clearly, it could have been mitigated if we hadn't run out of water, if we had cleared vegetation, if we had positioned the fire trucks in the neighborhoods that we knew that were high risk. A lot of things could have happened. They could have saved a lot of homes and a lot of livelihoods.
And so I think that by the time then I landed, a narrative had been set of me taking a frivolous trip, me knowing that the city was in danger and leaving and all of that stuff.
Yeah. It's interesting because we're sitting here in Malibu, right across the street. My neighbor's house burned down and the other house just across the other street burned down. And I think to go back to anger, we pay a lot of taxes in Malibu and in LA.
Yep.
And then there was a lot of, there weren't fire trucks and there weren't this and there weren't that. So you get angry. But there's bigger problems, insurance, for example.
Right.
Which obviously is not a mayoral thing, but I'm just going to bring it up anyway.
I know.
So it's a huge problem in California. It's a massive problem in LA, and it's the problem in Malibu. You can't get insurance. And insurance providers have been, it's an insurance desert. It's gotten even worse. These problems that are, I don't even know what that's like a national problem, a statewide problem.
National.
How do you as a representative, take on a problem like that, for example, that not only were there fires, which are horrific, and each house that burns is a family and all of their possessions and all of their pictures and high school diplomas and all that stuff. It's a tragedy, but then they don't have insurance or they're underinsured because of this ongoing problem. So I want to get back to when you land, but because it came up, how do you deal with those kinds of things?
So honestly, the best I can do is advocate and explain. And that's when you get a lot of anger from folks. But again, I do not take it personally. So what I do is that I explain, where the power is, and it's a private industry.
Yeah.
And then what I say is that I am certainly willing to advocate. For example, the FAIR plan, it's too low. And by the way, Malibu is very personal to me because my brother lived here for 35 years on Rambla Pacifica, was where our family went, for the holidays, and lived there 35 years. He was so used to evacuating. It was like, oh, it's a fire. This time, not so much. This time they didn't make it. So he lost everything as well. And by the way, had the FAIR plan with that maximum, and you know that maximum is nothing in this area.
It's nothing. Yeah, I have FAIR plan and it was nothing. And just to be clear, everyone thinks Malibu is a rich enclave, but it's got everyone from every walk of life, and and everybody pays the price. Okay, so you come back, and we get sort of hijacked on the plane by press. You come back, it's ground zero, it's happening. All of a sudden, you're getting briefed on everything that's going on. And what are your thoughts? Because all of a sudden people are saying, hey, the fire hydrants aren't working. Hey, you know, the fire department didn't deploy. Hey, there's reservoirs offline. What do you do?
Well, and actually those problems revealed themselves over a course of days.
Okay.
It wasn't all at once. To me, what hit me immediately was, why didn't I know? That's what hit me immediately.
Yes.
And you know, and that was a real, you know, a real shock. But as more
and why didn't you know? You didn't get briefed.
Well, I mean, to be honest with you, well, I didn't get briefed. That's true. But I think that, again, people did not anticipate the historic win. And it wasn't just LA. I mean, it was the county too. And what typically happens is that if there's going to be a big weather event, there are these briefings that happen. And it's either initiated by the fire department or the emergency department. I was used to the fire chief calling me and telling me, you know, this is getting ready to happen. Come over, I need to brief you. And all, you know, everything goes into motion. That didn't happen in the county. Meaning LA and
LA County.
Right.
So yeah, just to be clear, it's LA County and LA City. Yeah.
Was Malibu? I don't know, since Malibu is a separate city.
I don't think Malibu was handled well at all. Again, we pay a lot of tax.
Were any of the areas handled well?
What I would say is that's where a lot of the anger came from.
Yes.
Like when your stuff is burning down, this was all on fire around me. There's no fire trucks.
Right.
And, you know, he was a volunteer firefighter, and we interviewed some volunteer firefighters who are heroes, in my opinion, which I want to get into because they actually, it's interesting because after you go through the anger bits of it, they're like, look, you know, LA is just, it's going to burn, you know, and people have to take responsibility for their homes. And, you know, people have to do home hardening and, you know, trim the foliage and do all of these things, which is now going to implement. And they're talking about, you know, how to fund that and how to do things. And it was quite good to actually talk to them because you're like, oh, you know, because as a taxpayer, you're sitting there going, hold on, I pay taxes so that there's fire engines. I pay taxes so that there's infrastructure. I pay taxes so that there's police. So when something falls down, you get upset because you have to pay taxes on time or you get in trouble.
That's right.
Yet if they don't provide the services, what happens?
Right.
So I think there's a lot of frustration.
Sure.
There, you know, and so I think LA County was not great. I don't think Malibu was great.
Right.
You know, LA City had its problems. Would you say that there was a failure of communication and between the LA Fire Department and the mayoral office?
Sure.
Yeah. And so there's obviously fallout from that. And so would you say you took the majority of the pain for that? It doesn't seem like the fire chief.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But, you know.
But what's happening there now is like.
Well, I released her.
Yeah.
I released her, and I didn't release her right away because the city was on fire.
Yeah.
And I thought it was extremely inappropriate for her to do what she did while the city was burning.
Right, yeah.
And I was not going to do that. But I had to.
Yeah.
I had to, especially because the final straw was she was refusing to participate in the afteraction. And so that was
isn't that part of the mandate of her job?
Yeah.
Why wouldn't
Basically what she said was, I'll just wait for the state report, which, like I told you, is going to take
a year
or
but
more.
If that's your job, you can't refuse to do your job, especially when it's so important.
Well, when you refuse to do your job, you typically don't have the job after that, right?
And so that's what happened. All right, well, that's some interesting stuff. We haven't even gotten into that. Was just I have a bunch that I want to talk to you about because you're in the national news with sadly with the immigration issues, and this is why I say LA's become the new San Francisco, the hot topic, which I want to get into. But I just want to finish with the fire because I want to do immigration, and then another thing that we're talking about is homelessness, which is. But okay, so let's get into future fire risk. Knowing what we know now, what have we learned, And what are we going to do going forward? We still spend a lot more on suppression rather than prevention. We talked about home hardening and vegetation management. Are there going to be rebates for that? And also on the rebuilding, maybe, and this is our segue maybe, on the rebuilding, how much does I want to say national, so I'm going to say national, how much does the national focus on immigration affect the local rebuilding efforts?
So let me go back to just a little bit, because as I said, I'm getting ready to go, to do the send-off for the Army Corps of Engineers. The irony about what we're going through right now is that the reason why the recovery went so quickly is because of the administration.
Right.
Because they allowed for unprecedented numbers of Army Corps of Engineer to come and clear things out.
The presidential administration or the local administration?
President Trump.
Yeah, President Trump. So President Trump gave us the Army, and that's why it's running so well.
Yes.
So that's good.
Yes.
That's good, right?
Well, yes, but, and this is controversial for an Angelino, but I believe in giving credit where credit's due.
Why not?
I sung the praises all over town.
Okay, well, that's some great news. Look, Clinton, the last consensus politician, he worked both sides. We should get back to that.
Well, but I always have, actually. Right. I mean, that was certainly my reputation in Congress and in the State House.
Yeah.
But my point is that to have such a dramatic turn in the relationship,
right,
where I sung his praises all over town,
right,
and that's why we're ahead the way we are now, and then to have it turn so quickly.
Quite political, but kudos to the Army.
Mm-hmm.
Kudos to Trump for sending the Army. And okay, so we've had a good rebuild. The Army has done a great job. That's great to know. Now it's become highly political because of immigration. Maybe give us a little. I believe that there's a lawsuit going on.
Trump administration is suing Los Angeles, accusing city leaders of blocking federal immigration enforcement.
This is essentially an all-out assault against Los Angeles.
What I'm worried about with the whole thing that's happening is that we don't need to scare the workforce away. We can't rebuild anywhere without immigrant labor. And so that's what worries me. The lawsuit you're referring to is the lawsuit that the administration filed naming me, naming the council president and the city council over enacting sanctuary city laws. And they feel that what we have done is an obstruction of justice, and they're calling for an injunction. So we will see what happens in the court. And
what happens if they win or you win? Like, what happens?
Oh, so if they win, then and I'm not a lawyer.
Right,
If they win and an injunction is successful, I imagine that means it suspends our sanctuary city law.
Okay.
But then ask me what happens after that, and I'm not sure.
Right.
I'm not sure.
So that's taking place now?
That's taking place. I mean, it just started yesterday.
Yeah. Do you ever ask yourself why you got into politics?
Oh, no. No, this has been lifelong. I mean, I've been interested in politics since I was a child.
Yeah.
It just never occurred to me that was a job. So I worked in the medical field.
There's a quote, and maybe you can help me because I'm looking through my notes, but I'm going to paraphrase you and you can correct me. The ICE raids have been, for the labor market, as cooling as COVID was.
Well, actually, that was said to me by restaurant owners.
Okay.
They said it was worse than COVID.
Worse than COVID.
Yes.
Maybe explain a little bit about, because people won't understand
what they meant.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I said to them, this was on Father's Day. It was really sad. I went to East LA. I went to 3 different restaurants, kind of a block with restaurants clustered. No one was there.
Right.
And the owners were saying that, because I said, well, is this like COVID? They said, no, worse.
Really?
Because the workforce is not coming in. But you remember how a lot of restaurants survived through home delivery?
Yeah.
They said people aren't ordering.
Wow.
And people aren't ordering because they don't have the money and they're scared.
So not ordering, not going to, because they're afraid of raids.
Right. They're afraid.
Yeah.
Afraid to leave their homes.
And do you think we can rebuild with, if this injunction is won?
I don't know. Oh, well, because I don't know what happens if the injunction is won. I mean, ICE is already going crazy through town. I don't know how crazier it would be.
This is a side. This is sort of, we're dealing with things that are right now. How much are like the big international events, like, the Olympics are coming, and it seems like, we're in a bit of, flux right now. I mean, Palisades is, Altadena and Malibu. I mean, LA, ICE, all this stuff is happening. Seems to be a bit crazy. What happens when the world's focus is upon us?
So I think that my experience from working with this administration in their first administration is that, a lot of stuff is bombastic and then it kind of turns around. And I know that the World Cup and the Olympics is very important to the president.
Yeah.
Well, to the president.
Okay.
I know it's important to him.
And to Los Angeles.
Well, really, of course.
Yeah.
But it's important that it's important to him.
Got it. Yeah.
Given the personality.
Yeah.
And so I think that we will be fine and it will turn around. But here's where I'm a little worried, is I'm worried that people might not want to come here from other countries. But in terms of whether we will be ready, I believe we will. And
why wouldn't people come from other countries?
Well, for example, people coming from Latin America, Africa, Asia, all the countries that they feel are targeted. I mean, he imports white South Africans, but then, demonizes the rest of the world. And so, there was some soccer games in the Rose Bowl over the last couple of weeks, and attendance was way down.
Really?
Yeah. And what I don't know is I'm not sure how much of that was international or domestic, but it was an international game. So I worry about people. We're going to have to clean up our image, to the world so that people don't fear, well, what if I come here and they don't let me go and then they send me to Alligator Alcatraz?
Right.
You saw that yesterday, right?
Now, this is an interesting thing that I brought up earlier, San Francisco. San Francisco, for the longest time, has been sort of focused on and heralded as a failed city. And I go to San Francisco all the time, and I'm like...
Failed city where?
Yeah, the only thing I see in San Francisco is, I'm like, where did all the people go? They all went to the suburb. But it's not like the homelessness, it's nobody. Like, it's just sort of, the downtown core is empty. LA, we have a homeless problem, which I want to get into. But now LA seems to have taken the focus of, I want to say, the national political and the partisan political media has taken LA now as a failed city, that, people will call me, especially it came because a lot of Europeans will call me and say, how are you doing, Shane? Are you okay? And
Is the city on fire?
Listen, well, the fires.
Riots everywhere.
Well, the fires were serious. The fires, I'm like, okay, thank you for calling. But like, they're like, are you okay? Are you safe during the riots? And you're like, riots?
What riots?
Yeah, I didn't know about them. Obviously people downtown are protesting, et cetera, et cetera. We know that's, if you go downtown to protest, and that's everywhere now. That's a national news story about LA rioting. And how do you respond to that? You're the mayor of the city, and yet the national press is saying, oh, LA is a failed city, and da-da-da-da.
Well, that's one thing that's interesting about press these days, because certain stations wanted to portray it as though the entire city was on fire from riots.
Yeah.
Fire there in southeast LA County. They were setting fires in the streets during an anti-ICE protest.
Comparing it to 1992, of which I was right in the middle of that in 1992,
Right.
okay? One of the things that I said is that Los Angeles is 500 square miles.
Right.
This is maybe 2 square miles.
It's a massive city.
It's worse than a Laker victory, okay? But, you had 30,000 people downtown protesting on No King's Day.
Thousands of people have been gathering for the planned No Kings protest in downtown LA. It's in opposition to the Trump administration.
And you had a handful of people afterwards get arrested.
Things started to take a turn. We did see some of that activity, a few bottles being thrown into the air. That's really what started to trigger the rubber bullets and those less lethal munitions being fired.
And so this was not mass, but again, the administration wanted to paint a picture of chaos.
Authorities say those violent protesters, they assaulted law enforcement officers, slashed tires, defaced buildings and taxpayer-funded property.
So the riots basically were a drop in the bucket.
Yeah, I wouldn't call it a riot, because I think a riot takes place in more than 2 square miles.
Yeah.
It was after a protest, a peaceful protest.
Yeah.
You have knuckleheads who I was absolutely appalled at the way they graffitied everything.
Yeah.
And then, there was some vandalism, there was some looting. So I imposed a curfew immediately. The curfew lasted for 3 days, and that was it. There hasn't been any vandalism, no, looting since then.
And why do you think it's become such a political hot button?
Oh, I think that they wanted it to be that way. I mean, why did they come in and do the raids they did, the way they did? Why are they snatching people up off the street? That just is a provocation. You have people being snatched up, being chased through Home Depot, but you have car washes raided. I don't know that car washes are run by cartels. I mean, remember, we were told originally, gang members, drug dealers, violent criminals. But we also know that the administration switched strategies and said, we just want 3,000 people every day.
Yeah.
And so with that, you have people, we don't even know who they are. They're completely masked.
Yeah.
They're wearing uniforms that look like they bought them online. Sometimes all it says is police. They don't identify themselves. They stop people, jump out of cars with rifles. So they have provoked this, and there has been a big backlash in some places, but on a couple of occasions, it got out of hand to the point where there was vandalism, there was looting. I think looting happened one day.
So this has become a major political issue of which you're in the forefront. Another one is homelessness. Now, it doesn't matter what party you're from or administration you're from, and a lot of this was pre, your tenure.
But it's why I ran.
Well, there you go. Okay, well, let's get into it then. It seems to be a problem that just keeps getting bigger. No? Well, let's get into it, because recently there was some reporting that $2.3 billion is unaccounted for. They did an audit and they couldn't figure out where it went.
LA leaders, including Mayor Karen Bass, were summoned to federal court after an audit found billions in homeless funds were poorly tracked.
In federal court, the court said they didn't know, based on analysis, where any of the money was going.
I mean, it's a massive problem everywhere you go in the city, especially downtown, where there were the protests. And again, people point to it and say, it's out of control. Go.
So it is why I ran.
Okay, great.
I did not get tired of Congress. I wasn't trying to go for a higher office. I have run in each of my offices to pursue very specific problems.
Right.
And this is my last office,
Okay,
however.
all right.
But, this is an issue that I've worked on for more than 30 years. I have watched it get worse, but I will tell you that over the last couple of years, we have seen a decline for the first time. As a matter of fact, there's an article out today talking about a 50% decline of street homelessness in Hollywood, and another significant decline in Venice. Homelessness went up a little bit in Skid Row. Skid Row is the epicenter for the country.
Why is that?
Well, because the numbers are so concentrated there.
Right.
There's anywhere
But the
from...
weather, and is it true that weather being nice?
It's not true that everybody's from someplace else.
So it's not true that they ship?
It is not.
No, okay.
But you know what it is?
Yeah.
When you ask people where they're from, they tell you where they were born.
Right.
It's like, oh, you're from Chicago. How long have you lived in LA? Oh, 40 years.
Right.
I think you're an Angelino,
Well, but there's a lot made of these stories. That
It is.
People,
you know why? Because I think we have a hard time admitting that they're Angelinos.
Okay, all right.
Clearly they came from someplace else. They couldn't be us.
Yeah, that's interesting.
And I know this from literally talking to people on the street. But when I came in, my goal was to deal with street homelessness. And there's some fundamental flaws to what we've been doing over the last decades.
Yeah.
I don't even think we tried to end it. We just tried to manage it. And that was a fundamental mistake, okay? The other thing that we did was we were so fixated and dogmatic about permanent housing that we basically said, you stay on the street. I'm okay with you staying on the street while I build you something.
Right.
That was ridiculous.
Right.
We should have come up with a system of long-term interim housing. And then because my background is in the medical field, we did not take care. When we say people need services, people think of two things, mental health and substance abuse. They don't think of diabetes and heart disease and cancer.
Right.
And so we don't provide the correct services. All we focus on is sticking somebody in an apartment and expecting them to succeed when their entire lives have collapsed.
Right.
So the other thing I found out, and I would like to give you a couple of examples, over the years, we've come up with just crazy policies that actually make people homeless. So let me tell you one of the worst ones. If you are a veteran, we have, by the way, in the city, 3,000 unused vouchers for veterans. Unused, because if you're a veteran and you accept disability benefits, We count it as your income. Say you make too much money and won't give you a voucher. So we have housing for you,
right?
But we won't give it to you because you have to choose between your disability or housing.
And people don't want their money taken away.
Well, yeah. So what I did was I chair the National Committee on Homelessness for the U.S. Conference of Mayors.
Okay.
So I organized 100 mayors. We went to the House, we went to the Senate, we went to the White House. We advocated for months, and we got the administration, the Biden administration, to change the policy. Fantastic. So now we can use those vouchers.
Yeah.
So I think we're down to about maybe 1,400 now. So we've housed the veterans.
Right.
But it's an example of policies that have been put in place.
Right.
And one of the things that I found when I came to the city is that policymakers and bureaucrats never even challenged the policies. And I think because I served on the state level and the federal level, just because I hear it's a law, that doesn't mean anything to me. It's like, okay, change the law. And so I've had to change state laws, I've had to change federal laws. And then as soon as the Trump administration came in, the new secretary of the VA was one of my colleagues, one of my bipartisan colleagues. We actually worked together on criminal justice reform, Doug Collins. And so I met with him when he did his first LA visit, renewed our relationship, and the Trump administration, I do not believe, is going to change that policy. They're going to leave it in place because it wasn't the law. It was a policy that the Biden administration changed, and the Trump administration can just leave it alone.
And so if there is sort of bipartisan aid and help and consensus to do these things, why do you think that there's the press is so, not, for example, you don't hear that. All of the things that you just said, you don't hear. You hear the opposite. And it's news to me that homelessness is going down. But Venice, during COVID, our old office was there, and I would ride my bike down the boardwalk on the beach. It was Night of the Living Dead in Venice. I mean, it was crazy during COVID. So to hear that it's going down in Venice and Hollywood, interesting. I mean, Skid Row is...
LA Times today.
Yeah, okay, so
reports
that's good.
on it.
All right.
It said Skid Row went up.
Yeah.
And but the dramatic intervention was from the program that I started, that, by the way, was based on Venice. It was started actually by the woman that's in charge of LASA right now, who's come under a lot of really ruthless attacks, but called Inside Safe, where we get the people off the streets, we put them in hotels, and so we did a concerted effort in Hollywood, and that was the 50% reduction. And then in Venice, it's not real clear what that reduction was from, although we have done Inside Safes there. I think Tracy Park was doing some other things. But it's a RAND report, and then next week, the official numbers come out. Okay. And I know that it will also show the street homelessness is down.
We're going to put those numbers in because, look, we should report on the truth, whether it's good, bad, or ugly.
But let me just tell you, on the veteran piece, for example, I did a big press conference with the last VA secretary. Ironically, it was January 2nd. 2 days later, I leave for Africa, but it was widely covered.
Okay.
But that's a snapshot. It's far more sexy to talk about all these billions of dollars that are missing and blah, blah, blah.
But I mean, billions of dollars missing and homelessness being bad, it's not good.
No, of course not.
But to be clear, that's not your administration. It's all a bunch of
different... this has been going on for 30 years.
Yeah.
But money unaccounted for, unfortunately, that immediately translates into theft.
Yeah.
And it's not theft. I mean, it just isn't.
What is it?
That is not to say
it's just like accounting or...
Yes. Yeah. And there needs to be, there's just so much. I could take up the entire time telling you about all the problems.
Just give me your top two.
Yeah. My top one was that we did not build interim housing.
Right.
We were dogmatic about housing first. And people fall in love with their policies and they won't evaluate them to see, is it really working?
Yeah.
And then we do not provide services in an adequate, comprehensive way. One of the services we provide, just to give you an example, is when we take you off the street and put you in a hotel, a community-based organization takes over the management. The city can't do that day to day.
Sure.
The community-based organizations are doing all they can, but it's not enough. So one of their responsibilities is to provide you 3 meals a day. Well, if you've been smoking meth and you no longer have teeth, what are your 3 meals a day going to do for you? You have to take care of the whole person.
Well, that comes up a lot is mental health and drug.
Yeah, but unfortunately, it's fixated on that. And the overall person is neglected, right? And there's a lot of cancer patients, and a lot of people wind up homeless because they are sick.
Medical data.
Yeah, I've met people who kept missing work, didn't know why, didn't have adequate health insurance. Later find out they have cancer, they're fired from their job, everything spirals, and they're on the street.
Number one cause of bankruptcy in America.
Right, is healthcare.
Is healthcare. Let's go looking at the future. Somebody joked we're taxed like Zurich, but we get services like Athens. Funny, but to go to taxation, we have these high taxes, and then there's problems with homelessness, and there's problems with fire remediation and all these things. What would you like to see going forward? What advice would you give to the next mayor?
Well, what I want to see going forward is I want to see a commitment to solve problems and not just manage them. So because of elected officials are there for a short period of time, they just put Band-Aids on stuff.
Yes.
Because I can put a Band-Aid on it and then I'll be out of office, I'll be running for my next office.
Yeah.
One of the things in LA that I've been shocked by is the fact that the city is in control of blight. I mean, broken sidewalks, or there's, vacant lots, buildings that have fallen into disrepair.
Yeah.
So we're doing charter reform now, and I want to figure out how to deal with our infrastructure, but take it outside of elected officials.
Private industry or?
Well, no, I mean just I always believe it should be, public-private.
Yeah.
But I mean, in terms of it needs to be mandated. Right now, I can come up with a strategic plan to deal with all of the infrastructure, but I'm going to be out in a few years. The next mayor can throw it out the window. So it needs to be separate from elected officials.
Right, I see.
So some kind of outside authority that is required to report to the public every couple of years and finance it and all, because as long as it rests where elected officials are in charge, and I'm not denigrating my colleagues or my profession, but the nature of it, if you're only going to be someplace a short period of time, it doesn't matter how long-term your thinking is. By the way, that was one of the things I liked about Congress. Because I had the privilege of being in a safe seat, I could think long-term and plan for trade deals and plan for other systemic changes to failed systems.
It's interesting you brought up public and private working together. You mentioned Rick Caruso, who you ran against for who you won this mayoral seat. Been very vocal about public and private working together to fix Palisades especially. How do you see public and private working to help speed up, for example, rebuilding in Altadena, in Palisades, Malibu?
Well, let me give you an example of what I'm working with him on. Steadfast,
great.
Steadfast, JJ Redick, and the city are all working on the rec center together. And I think that's a perfect example. But I'll tell you how bureaucracy can be. There were some in the bureaucracy where we were like, no, we can't raise private money because FEMA is going to reimburse that. So why would I limit what I could do, and why would I take longer to do something when you have people who are saying we can raise the money and actually do better? If FEMA reimburses for part of it, fine, but I don't think JJ Redick, Caruso, or me are concerned about that. We want to have a world-class rec center in the Palisades because that's what the people deserve.
My kids play there. It's the center of the community. Very important for a lot of the families.
Well, you know what I felt about that too, and I didn't. I didn't know that at first. It was pointed out to me because everything was destroyed. But that town center, to me, I think is so important, because what you lose when you lose your house in a neighborhood, you lose your community.
Yes.
You lose your sense of community.
Yes.
And I think that's so important, especially for the children.
Yeah.
And especially the teens who lost their peers through COVID and then lose their peers again, because of the fires.
And don't have a school to go to, Pali High, et cetera.
Right. And so
my kids go to school there. It's
Oh,
in
they
the
do?
canyon. Well, they go to
The
school
new-
in Palisades.
Yeah.
And so, disrupted and, look, after COVID, this has just been a punch in the face to a lot of a lot of families, a lot of young people.
Right.
It's interesting you say it's just that sort of Pali Rec Center and Palisades Village. We walked through that with Caruso, and he was talking about the rebuilding efforts and public and private. So it's interesting you're doing things like the rec center with Caruso and JJ Redick.
Yeah, so let me give you, so the city owns that property.
Yeah.
The library and the playground, oh my God, I saw pictures of the playground yesterday. It's all back.
Oh, amazing.
It looks really, really good. And then also the library is going to be back in another month or so. So what I did was, it is out of the scope of the Army Corps of Engineers to clear the debris there.
Yeah.
They weren't supposed to do it. We advocated for them to expand their mission.
Right.
So they were able to do it because I felt like if the town center could come back, that's a part of the grieving, that if people had that center that they could go to, it helps, with the healing process.
It looks a lot better than I thought it would.
But you should see, I don't know when the last time you were there, go see the playground.
Okay, I will, yeah.
I saw the pictures yesterday.
We were there, I want to say a week ago, and we went through there. Now, if you're working with Caruso on redoing the rec center, what do you think about his criticisms, of being in Ghana, or the buck stops with the mayor, or I actually said to him, because I talked to these volunteer firefighters, and they had said, look, you got to take care of your home. You got to, cut back your vegetation. You got to harden your roof. You got to do all these things. It's up to you. So I was like, okay, well, if it's up to us, if somebody tells me that,
right,
I'm going to be a lot less angry,
right,
when something happens, because I know it's, my responsibility to be part of it. And he said, no, it's the politician's responsibility, and you pay taxes for a reason and all this stuff.
Nah.
How do you respond to that?
Well, let me just say too, I have a hillside home too, not where I reside now, because I reside in the mayor's residence. And I will tell you that do I pay a hell of a lot more attention to those cards I get that tell me to clear, the brush, that annual.
Yeah.
It is both. It is both. Absolutely. There's homeowner responsibility and there's city and responsibility. There's county and there's state responsibility.
Yeah. No,
each level of government has responsibility. And so, I know one thing is that I've met with the fire chief to make sure moving forward, because we kind of don't have fire season anymore, remember? I mean, fire's in January and December, but technically fire season now. What are the plans? So I'm meeting with the fire chief next week. I know all the brush has been cleared, but I'm meeting with him next week to hear the overall plan, in terms of potential evacuation routes, all of that.
And you expect an action plan after action plan.
Yeah, now you've raised it. I'm going to leave here and find out, because actually enough time has passed.
There we go. And I know you're running off to an important political function. What are your 5, let's say, we'll keep it to time. Give me your 2 biggest regrets for the fires and your 2 biggest things you're proud of.
Oh, regrets for sure, not being here. I mean, no, ifs, ands, or buts about that. Yeah. And then number 2 was, the fact that I was not aware. Mm-hmm. Absolutely, there's no question about it. I probably have like 10.
Okay, and the 2 that you're proud of?
I'm proud of the One-Stop Center, the Disaster Recovery Center, the work. The Impacted Workers Center, because I don't think people thought much about the people that worked in the homes and on the properties, and then the executive directives. There's a lot that I'm proud of, but again, going through mass grief with people, I'm glad that I have gone through that myself, so I could be a little more in tune to it. But it's a very tough thing, and it doesn't go away.
And if you sit down with the next mayor of LA, what would be some of the advice you'd give him or her?
Well, back to what I was saying around infrastructure, because we have to figure out how to take care of the city in the short term while we have more longer infrastructure plans. And we have to figure out how to budget for that. I mean, for example, the reason why our liabilities are so much is because of the broken sidewalks that still don't get fixed after people are sued.
Really?
Yeah. The broken sidewalks, other features of our infrastructure.
So infrastructure.
Yeah.
Infrastructure is a big one. Top 2 things for homelessness, top 2 things for immigration.
For homelessness, it's the comprehensive services that are actually needed that do not exist right now. And then the other is a more cost-effective way than hotels. They're too expensive. So we need to get out of that business. One thing that is good, I'm sorry, since you raised it, is that, you know, they have come up with new and improved shelters that provide more privacy and security for people. And so perfecting that and transitioning people out of hotels into more cost-effective. One thing that's never talked about, by the way, is how much it costs to leave people on the streets. So back to fires, you know, in many parts of the city, the #1 reason for fires are homelessness. So you think of how much it costs to leave people on the street versus how much it costs to put people in hotels.
Yeah. How has policing been? There was a commitment for 9,500 police people.
Another sore spot for me.
Here we go. Okay, tell me.
Well, first of all, what I feel good about is that we have destroyed the myth that people don't want to be police officers.
Sure, yeah.
We've been able to recruit. We probably have over 1,000 young people in the pipeline. The reason why I growl is because the only thing that is holding us back is ourselves, is an archaic hiring process.
How so?
Well, we put young people through so much red tape that where I've been very successful, I've recruited police officers for every police department but LAPD. In other words, they get so frustrated going through the process, they leave. Because they do things like they have background checks. How long does it take you to check the background of a 25-year-old? They haven't lived that long.
Yeah.
They can take like months and months and months.
Sure.
So I have new leadership at the personnel department, a new police chief, and we have to address that problem. The council put a certain amount of money in that is attached to a goal that I suggested. And if they don't meet that goal, then they don't get the rest of the money. So I want to put the pressure on the department too.
For hiring more police officers.
Yeah, for correcting the hiring system.
Yeah.
Because the recruits are there. So I think the popular myth is that, well, you can't recruit, nobody wants to be a police officer now. Yeah. It's just not true.
And is that the same, is there a problem for firefighters?
No, interestingly, no.
Yeah.
Firefighters, their classes are full.
And is there now going to be, are they going to hire more firefighters and get the fire trucks online and all that stuff?
Yeah, the ones that can go online. Remember, finding out that a lot of those were never intended to be back online.
Right. And just this is an aside, but I remember it being a news story. There was a story like we sent some to the Ukraine or something. We sent some fire trucks to the Ukraine. I mean,
no, I didn't hear that.
No, you didn't.
Firefighters, but not to the Ukraine. Yeah. But we sent, as a matter of fact, we've sent firefighters. I was notified just yesterday because of the fires that are happening in the Inland Empire.
Yeah.
So we send firefighters all over, just like firefighters. I mean, firefighters came here from Canada, from Mexico. Sure. From, you know, all over.
We want to give shouts out to the firefighters that came from all over.
Absolutely, and our firefighters.
And our firefighters, of course, our firefighters too, which is a shame that there was sort of a breakdown.
A big shame, especially, and for me, that was definitely one of my biggest regrets. And like I said, to this day, it's a mystery to me. I have no idea why she flipped.
Well, maybe because there was a lot of blame.
A lot of things she didn't want to come out, yeah.
Yes, yeah.
We have an interim fire chief.
Yeah.
And I'm very big on national searches.
Yeah.
And so we haven't started the national search yet, but we are in process of tying down a contract with.
And so obviously the relationship with the interim fire chief is much better. Are you worried about fire season, quote unquote, this upcoming?
No, I'm not. I mean, you know, I think everybody is hyper vigilant.
Yeah. I want to say thank you for your time today. I know you're busy and...
Well, let me say thank you because what I really appreciated about this is that we actually were able to not have sound bites and have an in-depth discussion, and I really value that.
Well, I don't think a lot of people... See, look, this is called Shane Smith Asks Questions. I think a lot of people have the same questions that I have. You had answers to every question. And a lot of people don't hear the sort of the long story.
Right.
The thing is, so for example, I learned something today. I didn't know you were chair of the African, I don't know what of the, and that's why you
Subcommittee
were
on Africa and
Subcommittee.
Foreign Affairs.
There you go. And you were invited by the executive office to go to Africa.
President of the United States.
I think a lot of that is lost.
Right.
In the news story. Well, she's not here as L.A. Burns.
Even though it was widely covered in the news.
It is very interesting. And so look, I think, I want to thank you again for your time, but it's great to get, my thing is there's two sides to every story.
Right.
And let's just sit down and have a discussion. So it shows a lot of courage to come here and give your story. But look, I appreciate your time, and hopefully this is not the last time.
I hope so too.
We can go on. And look, when there are milestones, or things that happen with the lawsuit, for example, with ICE, with homelessness, when there are milestones or anything good or bad, let's sit down and talk.
Okay. I would appreciate the opportunity to come back.
Okay, thanks for your time.
Okay.